I'm here chilling at the MOTU booth, man, where they got some crazy stuff going on. They got the new 828X with the Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt is the wave of the future, and being able to work with the newest Macintoshes and be on the same kind of a bus speed as what's going to be the fastest consumer hard drives available, that's really exciting to me.
Having onboard effects, great capability, you can do all kinds of crazy buses.
As we're starting to upgrade our systems, Thunderbolt is coming into play, so I'm looking forward to that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome to the MOTU booth here at NAMM 2014. My name is Dave, but right now I'm going to be talking about a new product from MOTU. This is really our big announcement for this year. A new product called the 828X, and this is the Thunderbolt audio interface from MOTU. The 828X is in stores right now, and to help us introduce this new product, we have a very special group of guest stars. This is Warner Brothers artist MAYBEBOP. Guys?
Very superstitious, writing on the wall. Very superstitious, the land is about to fall.
We'll bring them back up in a few minutes to help us finish off this demonstration. What are we demonstrating? Well, I'd like to introduce the fifth member of MAYBEBOP, and this is Thomas the Tone Meister at the back. Hello, Thomas. Wave your hand so everybody can see you. And what do you got in your hand there? It's an iPad, and this is the mixer that we're using to mix MAYBEBOP. And Thomas, you wiggle a knob there? Yeah. So you see that Thomas has remote wireless control over the mix of the singers that you were just hearing here. What is this thing? Well, it's an audio interface, and in its basic concept, it provides input and output to a Macintosh or Windows computer. It's got audio inputs and outputs, it's got MIDI inputs and outputs. The secondary function of this piece of equipment is that it's got a mixer inside. And that's what we're demonstrating with MAYBEBOP. They're singing live through this interface, and it's not just a mixer, but it's a mixer with effects processing. We have internal effects inside the interface. We can also use external effects, hardware-based effects, software plugins inside the computer. So let's explore it a little bit. Well, first of all, the 828X is a fifth-generation device. I'm very proud to say that MOTU is the first company to ship a FireWire-based audio interface, and that was the original 828 interface. Sound on Sound magazine gave that original 828 one of their milestone awards, 25 products that changed recording. There was only one audio interface on that list, and that was the original 828. Now we come to the 828X, fifth generation of a very, very popular product. And the first thing to know about the 828X is that it supports Thunderbolt on both Macintosh and Windows platforms. Thunderbolt is the new connectivity protocol. You know that Apple has done away with PCI slots. Thunderbolt is a cross-platform protocol, and so MOTU has a solution. If you have a computer that doesn't have a Thunderbolt port, no problem, because there's also a USB port on this. And yes, you'll get the same performance from this interface on USB or Thunderbolt. The difference is that on Thunderbolt, you can add additional interfaces because Thunderbolt has so much more bandwidth. But it can connect with Thunderbolt or USB. Electronic Musician magazine gave the 828 Mark III, the predecessor to the 828X. They gave it the Editor's Choice Award. And we have a plaque in the back room, a little award that says Most Badass Interface. I think they got it right. It has a total of 28 channels of audio input and 30 discrete channels of audio output. That is a lot of channels of input and output on one box. On the front panel, it's got two microphone guitar inputs. And those microphone inputs have limiters available to them. There's two sets of optical I/O for expansion. MIDI input and output. SMPTE synchronization. The 828 can generate LTC SMPTE, and it can lock to LTC SMPTE. Qmix Fx mixing and effects. And what we're talking about there is the mixer inside the interface. We call it Qmix because it's basically used as a monitor mix, and Qmix has effects processing built into it. And of course, superb sound quality, 192 kilohertz sample rate, let's see, 20 dB max line level in and out. That's an AES EBU specification. Distortion 0.001% or better. This is the stellar sound quality that you would expect from a professional product. So we're looking at the front and the rear of the 828X. On the front panel, working from left to right, you see there's the mic, guitar inputs, high impedance input on the 1/4-inch jack for your guitar, low impedance input for the microphone preamplifier, clean gain on the mic preamplifiers. Let's see, phantom power, pad controls, of course. Then you've got 2 sets of headphone jacks. The first set of headphones mirrors the main outputs. The second set of headphone outputs can mirror any pair of outputs on the interface from the main outputs, any pair of the optical outputs, but that second set of headphone outputs can also be their own independent mix. So we can have 2 completely separate headphone mixes right off the front panel. You can see that there's the LCD screen and the LED indicators there. So if we want to check volume, if we want to do some programming on the interface from the front panel, if we want to check what is the clock source, what is the sample rate, all that information is right in front of you. On the rear panel, there's our power jack, BNC connections for word clock in and out, SPDIF connections, MIDI in and out. There's the 2 sets of optical ports. There's the Thunderbolt port, the USB port, and then you've got all of the line level analog input and output. 8 channels of line input and 10 channels of line output. Of course, those are tip ring, sleeve, balanced pro audio connections. So, and then at the very end, the 2 XLR jacks for the main outputs. Now we're talking about Qmix Fx, and this is, again, the mixer that's inside the interface. We can control that mixer from the front panel. We can disconnect the interface from the computer. It can be a standalone mixer and complete programmability from the front panel. And that includes not just volume and pan, but also effects. Now we can control the Qmix from the front panel. We can also control it from the computer, and that's what the Qmix console is. It's a 16-bus mixer with effects, sends, and returns. Again, there's effects built into the interface, but if we want to use external hardware effects, if we want to use effects inside the computer, we can do that. We've got the soft clip and the V-limit for the microphone inputs. Dynamics and EQ for every channel of input and output. We call our EQ a British-style EQ because we have 5 different selectable slope types for the parametric EQ. We've got 2 different types of compressors on every channel of input and output. A standard amplitude-based compressor, but also the LA2A leveler, and this is based on the Masterworks leveler plugin from Digital Performer. This is a model of that classic 1965 optical compressor, 10 microsecond attack time, just a really beautiful, smooth compression, and you have one of those on every channel of input and on the outputs. There's also a reverb in there, again, typically used for monitoring. The singer says, test, test, okay, can you hear my voice? Give me some reverb. Okay, we'll turn the reverb up there. Surround sound monitoring is supported. That's what we're doing in here. We have a 5.1 system. From the front panel, we can have 1 knob, or from the computer, you can have a control, and that 1 knob or control can control any combination of outputs on the interface. So I can set up a surround sound system, and there's my surround sound volume controller. Might seem like a simple thing until you go to set up a surround system and say, how do I turn the volume up or down on 6 channels? The 828X takes care of that. Talkback and control surface support. If you'd like to control that mixer and you want to use actual faders, you can get yourself a Mackie Universal Control. You can use that. 32-bit floating point processing in the mix, in the internal mix, and then we'll go to 64-bit processing inside the actual effects. So these are very high quality processing built into the 828. Now, if the 828 is connected to the computer and you're using that Qmix console, we're also going to give you audio analysis tools. So you've got a real-time FFT display, and this can be applied to any channel of input or output. You've got a spectrogram waterfall. So let's think about the process here. I'm going to set up a nice omnidirectional microphone in the mix position in my studio. I'll send white or pink noise out through my speakers, and I'm going to put the spectrogram and the waterfall on the input that's receiving from the microphone. And that spectrogram will show me what the frequency response that the microphone is picking up. So now I can use the equalizers on the output of the interface and do room correction on my stereo monitors, on my surround sound system. So I have the tools necessary to do the complete room correction all built into the 828. There's an oscilloscope. Maybe you do sound design. Maybe you work with modular analog synthesis and you want to see exactly what the shape of the waveform is. Maybe you want to make sure that when you record your bass guitar, you're not getting square wave clipping on there. So we've got the oscilloscope. The XY plot and the phase torch, what these do is they compare a left and a right signal, and they show you frequency response and phase measurement between two signals. This is critical on both input and output. If you're doing a mix, a stereo mix, you want to know that there's no phase problems with that, so you can put the phase torch on the output, look at the phase of your mix, or maybe you're doing some stereo recording. You're recording a choir. You've got two microphones up. Are those microphones in phase position? Well, we'll look at the phase torch and we'll compare those inputs and make sure that we've got the exact mic position that we need. Here's an extremely practical tool. I use a MOTU interface live on stage. I plug my guitar into it, I run the guitar signal through Digital Performer, and I use all of the cool effects inside Digital Performer, run it out through the audio interface and out to the PA system. The only thing that I see on the screen of my computer while I'm gigging is the tuner. I'd like to introduce the fifth member of MAYBEBOP, and this is Thomas the Tone Meister at the back. And what do you got in your hand there? It's an iPad, and this is the mixer that we're using to mix MAYBEBOP. And Thomas, you wiggle a knob there, yeah? So you see that Thomas has remote wireless control over the mix of the singers that you were just hearing here. Let's take a look at exactly how that's working. This is our live system. And this is the Qmix that we're currently using. So Thomas has control over the direct signals, over the actual live microphone signals, but he's also got control over the effect sends and returns. Now we're using processing inside, we've got EQ, right? So we can look at which channel and what the EQ setup is for each of those channels. We've got our dynamics. There's our LA2A leveler, and we've got available for all our channels of inputs and outputs. There's our reverb circuit, okay? So we're using effects processing that is built into the 828. All this software is doing is controlling what's happening inside the interface, and 100% control from the iPad. Every parameter of every effect is controllable by remote wireless, but we're also using external effects. We have a little stomp box pedal back here that's patched in, that's an octave divider. This MAYBEBOP likes to use the octave divider for that low voice there. So external hardware is patched into the mix, and we're also running Digital Performer in the background, and Digital Performer is hosting our Proverb, which is our convolution reverb, and that's giving us a really nice cathedral sound there. And that's patched into the Qmix as well. So we're using effects processing from 3 different places: inside the 828, inside the computer, and external hardware-based effects. What do you say? Should we bring MAYBEBOP back for one more track?
Very superstitious, writings on the wall. Very superstitious, land is about to fall. 13 months old baby, roll the looking glass. 7 days of bedlam, and all the good things in the past. When you believe in things that you don't understand, and then you suffer. Superstition away, very superstitious. Wash your face and hands. Rid me of the problem. Come on now, do all that you can. Now, when you believe in things you don't understand, and you suffer.
MAYBEBOP. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful NAMM show. We're MOTU. I'm Dave. Thank you very much.